Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Product Stories. Our guest for today's episode is Milan Maheshwari. Milan is a product designer at Swiggy. He was previously a design intern at Cleartrip. He also has multiple side projects: Morph, a Figma plugin, and Spectrum, a web tool to generate or create color palettes. Apart from all of this, he also develops games. I'm your host Kaushik Mulli, and you're listening to Product Stories. Hey Milan, welcome to Product Stories. Super happy to have you here, man. Been looking
Hey,
forward
hey,
to this
Kaushik.
episode. Yeah.
Me too.
Why? Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the
Yeah.
audience?
Okay. So, you obviously know me. I am Milan, and I work as a product designer currently at Swiggy. And I am an engineer turned product designer. I graduated last year, the batch of 2020. And yeah, on the side, I'm exploring design tooling and game design and things, Figma plugins sometimes. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that.
Yeah, man, interesting story. When I graduated in 2020
Yeah.
and came from the same engineering background. So, why don't you actually go ahead and talk a bit about how you started, what it was like
Hmm.
transitioning from an engineer to a designer, and you also went to one of the best engineering schools in the country. So it must have been like a whole roller coaster ride. So definitely I would love to know your journey.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, it started when I started college, in 2016, and I didn't know anything about design or anything, that it's a profession or something. I just was decent in studies in high school, so I gave the JEE exam like usually kids do, and I got a decent rank at a decent college. And yeah, after the first semester, I realized that no, it's not for me. I'm not enjoying whatever is going around here. So the good part was that at IITR there are a lot of communities that are set up by students themselves. So you don't have to worry about what's being taught in the class. Even if you don't, are interested in that part, you can always go around in these communities and groups and try out something else. So I joined a group called STS Labs, which is basically software development and product design related group. And there are other groups like EDC, which is Entrepreneurship Development Cell. And yeah, so I was also a part of that for a year or something. So that's how in the STS Labs, basically, what we did was, organize hackathons and all these online competitions regarding coding and designing and all those things. And we also made applications for our campus Janta that ran on the intranet of our campus. So yeah, that's how I got to know that UX design or design is something from my seniors who are already doing all those things. And yeah, as a kid, I was always, into those creative things. I used to watch all those programs which, used to run like Mad and Art Attack and all those things. And I used to make
Yeah.
things in my summer holidays. So yeah, I had that interest in creative things and sketching and all those things. But I didn't know that design is something which is done professionally. So in my first year, actually in the second semester, I joined STS Labs, and after that, I started with basic tooling and Illustrator, Photoshop, all those things, and started making posters for all these events that we, used to conduct. And after maybe my second year started, I got also involved in all those projects that we did for our campus, Janta, basically. And yeah, so that's how I got started in design.
Yeah, super interesting story. Like I remember watching Mad and trying out
Yeah,
different all those creators. Those arts and crafts which he used to make. It used to be super fun.
yeah,
That's kind of actually where I learned to paint. Actually, I never
mm,
ended up becoming a good painter or whatever. But like some of the things which I learned, especially like sketching, painting, and stuff, it kind of
yeah.
started with that show. Uh, it's a good childhood memory, to be honest. Yeah. And talking more about your journey, right?
Hmm.
You also interned in three different places, right? So one was Cleartrip.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so would really want to know more about how you went ahead with the whole process of getting an
Hmm.
internship while being an engineer.
Okay. So my first internship was actually at a company called Blackbuck. So this was a startup and still is in Bangalore, which deals with logistics, trucking and all those things, going from point A to point B, delivering things like that. So I didn't apply anywhere. I knew a senior who worked there. His name is Viraj Verma, who recently was in Microsoft and now is in a startup. So yeah, I talked to him that yeah, I am interested in all these things. I am interested in design. So is there any opportunity for internship or something? So there was a pretty small team, not a very big team, the design team. There were only 4 or 5 people, and yeah, including me, which I was the intern. So yeah, that was a pretty good experience actually in Bangalore. First time I was out in a city, and we used to work late till late at night, and then on weekends I also had 2 or 3 friends around. So we used to go around roaming in Bangalore's streets and all those things. So it was a pretty good experience, and that's when I decided, yeah, maybe this can be a something. Design can be something that I can take up professionally after that internship. So I worked on a project called Super Boss. It was a basically a mobile application which managed fleet. Fleet is a group of trucks. So let's say there is truck owner who has a 50 fleet of truck. Okay, so he needs to manage all those things. So we built that for the truck owners who needed that, and it was a pretty good 2 month experience. And another internship I did was with Cleartrip. So this was during the winters of my third year. So I think December, and Blackbuck was in summers in my second year. So yeah, so Cleartrip's internship was pretty much not just related to design. It was a front end dev plus design kind of internship, just for 1 month. I was not explicitly looking for winter internships because I knew that 1 month internships are very hard to find. But yeah, I was, I was maybe lucky enough to get that internship. And yeah, after that, I worked on a project which was an internal tool. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but uh, during that, I also got to know the web development side of things and the front end dev side of things a little bit, not much. So that's when I thought, why not just maybe I can try and make my own portfolio website. So after the internship, when I came back to college in January, I started, exploring all these things, HTML, CSS, JS, and all those things, and made a pretty basic portfolio website. So yeah, that was the ClearTips internship, and that website actually helped me getting an internship at Swiggy. So when I, randomly messaged, I think Sapta over LinkedIn, and he
Mhm.
replied sometime very late around my third year when my third year was ending that why don't you send this mail with your portfolio and all that. So yeah, that's when the portfolio website helped to apply. And yeah, then there was the whole procedure of Swiggy's internship. There was an assignment and all those things, and I got an
Mhm.
intern at Swiggy as well. And with Swiggy, this was in 2019, I think 2019 summer, and I worked on pretty good projects actually, 2 3 very good projects. One of them was including a smartwatch application for tracking your food orders. So for both Apple Watch and the Google OS Watch.
Mhm.
So that actually got shipped in 2 months, and which was pretty great for me as an intern that our project is getting shipped in just 2 months.
Yeah.
And yeah, another thing was I worked on something related to premium restaurants, which were on the app. So that was a pretty fun project as well. I got to visit a lot of premium restaurants in reality and eat a lot of food. In I used to go in all these places in Bangalore, in Kormangla, and all that. and talk to those managers and all that and eat food. So that was a pretty good experience. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, sounds great, man. And right after this internship, you also joined Swiggy full time, right? I guess you joined Swiggy full time
yeah,
around 2020.
yeah. I joined last year, July, so it's been
Hmm.
11 months. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what's it like to work at Swiggy? What's the culture? What do you get to do on a day-to-day basis? I know that
Hmm.
that you can't go into details of the projects
Hmm.
that you work on, the problem statements you work on, but probably like a bit of an overview would be great.
Okay. Okay, so I work in the consumer design team, which is basically the app that you and me and all people see when you order food. So that's the consumer design team, and it also has other products like Instamart and groceries and all. So our team is basically the good old restaurant storefront team, which I'm part of. So Sapta and people like Abhishek and all these people are there. Rahul, if you know, was also there in this team. So we basically design experiences for the good old restaurant ordering service. And I mean, when I joined in July and up till last year, I was working on small projects here and there in the team only. And now currently I'm actually focused more on checkout and the payments part of things, which are, super important because it is the last step of any order to go through. And if you fuck up there, the order is gone. So
Yeah,
yeah,
the last part of
that's
the funnel.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm currently working on.
Interesting.
Hmm.
And Um, I mean, one of the things which I was really looking forward to this episode, one of the topics which I wanted to discuss with you was the side project, the whole side project part. Uh,
Hmm.
I know that you have a bunch of side projects too. So do I. Really want to understand, like, what is your idea behind your side projects? Not into the details of
Hmm.
what the side projects are. I'm gonna get there, but why side projects in the first place? Why do them? Why take on side projects as a junior designer when you could be spending the same time over the weekend, chilling or relaxing, right?
Yeah.
But more or less, all of
Okay.
us do spend our weekends for the side projects, right? For me, it does not feel like work at all. It's more of fun, or it's more of like a learning
Hmm.
process. I do want to understand what it's like for you.
Yeah, I think you are absolutely right there. That side projects don't need to feel like work. I mean, if they are fun to do, like imagine you're playing some game or something, you don't feel that this is a work. You can play for hours and hours. Like, so if you're doing something, I mean, I believe that if you're enjoying that, it doesn't feel like work, and you can work on maybe on weekends or nights, but whenever it works. So me, I think side projects have helped me. Yeah, you're right that it helps you learn things. So basically, what I used to think was learning is basically two-way process of, you can read stuff and learn by that, or you can do something and learn through that. So there's learning by doing and learning by reading. So I felt that when I read books and anything on Medium or something, I felt that I used to forget all those things after some time. So
So
even if I have read that, uh, I didn't feel that this is getting me something tangible or something, right? So I felt that why not just leverage this part to build something. I'm actually not a very big fan of coding and all that, but I used to do concept projects as well in college. That on the side, I have some problems in everyday life. So I used to design anything. So, for example, I designed an a calculator converter something app in a very crude way that it used to convert something from any uh, ratio or something. So it was a concept project. So I thought after maybe starting a full time role, I thought why not just convert these concept projects into something tangible which people can use. So I started exploring coding and all that because I felt that coding gives you the power of building your ideas basically, and you can learn a lot of things. in the process. So, for example, I worked on a plugin for Figma, right? And I learned a lot about branding and how do you present uh, your idea and how do you show your final product, how do you vision it, that how will it evolve in the future. So things like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, basically that's it.
Yep. One of the things which I remember
Hmm.
right from our discussion is the thing which Darshan Gajar always tells is that whenever he wants to learn something new, he just goes ahead and starts a side project, right?
Yeah.
And it's been the same for me. Like for the longest time, I have been trying to learn app development because
Hmm.
that is like one thing where I still don't believe there are any good no code tools. Uh,
Hmm.
Probably like in comparison with like what Webflow is to web, I don't feel the same for apps, right? So I still learned and like learned coding, and the only way I could motivate myself to ever learn coding was that I probably want to build this app. I made all the wireframes and only then
Yeah.
started trying to learn code because of there's so many wireframes now. I'm so invested that I actually want to learn, right? I think starting a side project to learn things is one of the best
Yeah.
ideas that I've ever come across. And at
Yeah.
the same time, um, it there are so many things which you discover when you make a side project, right? You start with probably just trying to learn web development or like trying to learn
Hmm.
app development or something as
Yeah.
simple
I
as
mean, yeah. Side projects, I
sending
mean,
out
give you the
emails.
liberty to explore your creativity. I mean, you work on the main projects in your whatever company you work, so there are a lot of limitations or constraints which you have to abide by.
Yeah.
And side projects give you that liberty to explore whatever you want to do. Right? There's no constraint. You are solving a problem for yourself, and if it helps some other person, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, and at the same time, the projects also tend to evolve right with time, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
You tend to discover something different, something new,
Right.
or you probably end up learning something whole
Hmm.
different thing which you probably didn't even know existed before, right? So
Right.
I
You
mean
start with
that
something and end up with something else. Yeah.
yeah, that's more or less what side projects have meant for me
Hmm.
as well. Um, the next thing which I probably want to talk about is the Figma plugin which you mentioned.
Yeah.
I I
Hmm.
am super curious to know about this. I probably want to know from right from the stage of ideation to how you went ahead with implementing it, and how did you get the audience for it as well. Probably if you could mention all of that, it would be
Okay.
super great.
Okay. So I didn't had an idea to, build a plugin for this thing, which I mean, Morph, if someone doesn't know, is a plugin which converts any shape or vector layer into a very complex effect that otherwise is very difficult to make. For example, you want to make a skeuomorphic effect, so it's pretty difficult to apply all those shadows and I mean whatever bezels and all those effects, and it can do it in a click. Okay, so I didn't had that idea initially. I started with something else actually. I wanted to build a plugin that was clear, but I didn't had an idea. So I was just exploring all these Figma plugin APIs and how people. I mean, I read a few articles how designers are also doing this part because it's not a very complex thing. You need to know just basic HTML, CSS, and all that, and you can have a plugin on it yourself. So I started with an idea of, Figma has a feature when you select anything, it shows you the selection colors, correct? So for example, you have
True.
selected anything on the canvas, it shows you your on the right hand side the selection colors. So I thought, why not apply this to other properties like text, typefaces, font size, all that. So when you select basically anything, it will give you the typefaces, all the typefaces which are used in that selection, and you can edit that, and automatically it will change. So I started with that. It's a very half-baked project yet, and I
Hmm.
left that in between, and basically diverted towards Morph, which I did because I was exploring at that time 3D and all these things were coming up, right? I think around the last
Hmm.
year. So I was trying out an illustration of a keyboard which had skeuomorphic properties. So I was thinking this is a very repetitive and complex task which I have to do every time I make even a small button or something. Why not just automate this? So I explored all these things. How can you scale this from a very small button to a very large canvas and apply the same thing to any color or something. So that's how I started with Morph. It was initially just the skeuomorphic effect. And when I thought that, yeah, maybe we can extend this to other things like neon and all those things. So I built 4 or 5 effects and published it on the Figma community for publicly. And it got some attention because I posted that on Twitter and LinkedIn something. And yeah, and after that, I also had an idea about gradients, which I didn't initially publish, but I had an idea that, yeah, it could be done, that creating complex, gradients and fluid gradients in Figma is very difficult. So why not just use this shape properties to do something? So later I published that also, and it also got some attention. Yeah. So basically that was pretty good. I didn't expect actually it will get that attention. Yeah, but it was pretty fun to do. Learned a lot during the process. And yeah, so the visual styles and all those branding logos, all those things are pretty good also. Yeah.
It's more of an end-to-end project, right? You start with
Yeah.
the most minute details and
I
you
started with something else, yeah, and pivoted
that
towards this, and then yeah, it got evolved into an end-to-end project. Yeah.
yeah, that happens a lot with side projects where you constantly keep changing your mind, you're constantly
Mm.
exploring new things, or you discover some a more challenging problem and you want to solve it.
Yeah.
Interesting one. You recently launched Spectrum, right? I mean, you kind of
Mm.
pre-launched it, and you're still
Yeah.
yet to launch it completely, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you really want to know what's in store for
Mm.
designers with Spectrum. What's it all about? Probably like a little bit of context
Okay.
about it.
Yeah. So Spectrum is not launched yet. I mean, it's still work in progress. So Spectrum's idea was derived from Morph only. So the gradients feature I was talking about that had a color generator sort of thing. I mean, I started with how can I generate gradients? So for that gradients you need colors, correct? So I unknowingly built a palette generator for that. So I thought, why not leverage this palette generator to some other things? I mean, there are a lot of palette generators, color palette curation websites available on the net. But all those things don't really solve the purpose which I was looking for. And it was that even if you have a palette, you have, let's say, 6 colors, and you want to apply that on a design, you can't really figure that out uh, if you try and see that is it working or not. You basically get a palette, apply it on your design manually on Figma or something, and then see that yeah, it's not working. So I might go to another palette. So what Spectrum does it basically applies directly those palettes to any design on the browser itself. So when you generate a palette, the colors are also generated in the design itself. So you have, let's say, any illustration which you uploaded on Spectrum, and it has some colors or something, and those 6 colors will be applied directly to that. So that's the basic idea. It's not yet launched; it's still work in progress, and I have to figure a lot of things out. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be waiting for that. I mean, that just saves so much time for a designer if you think about it.
Hmm.
Um, like like when I usually try these things for a side project or like a concept project, right? There's
Hmm.
so many palettes which I'm going through, and every time it's the same process of going and replacing the single colors.
Yeah.
And this would save a ton of time, and I believe it will be super useful for designers. We should, I mean, you should all probably join the wait list for Spectrum. I already have.
Yeah,
Um,
I got your mail.
yeah, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it because I didn't completely understand from the website, to be honest. So
Hmm.
I was really looking forward to understand what it was and what was the whole thing about it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So I
looking
asked this
forward.
on Twitter only. I asked this problem on Twitter only. So a lot of people were facing this, that try we have to
Mm,
do trial and error to apply colors to my design, right?
yeah,
So yeah, basically that was the validation I needed to get started with this.
yeah, yeah.
I'm posting the work in progress on my Twitter only by the time it gets into a very good shape or something.
Yeah, it's basically building in public, right?
Yeah, I'm trying that part out because in Morph, I didn't try that. I was just working in a vacuum or something. And at the last, when it was finished, I just launched this. There was no public feedback or anything. It was just my working. Okay. So I thought, why not just try something else? Why not just post my work in progress on Twitter or something and get ideas along the way and shape the product accordingly. So yeah, this is just something I'm trying out.
Yeah, interesting. I have personally never tried to build anything in public. I mean, I simply don't have any particular reason as to why I'm not done it, but it does seem very interesting. And I follow so many creators who build in public who
Mm,
are so transparent with their numbers, with
yeah,
I mean, with the side projects which even generate income and revenue. And expenses also. Expenses
yeah,
is
yeah,
something
yeah,
almost nobody talks about when it comes to side projects. Um, I'm
yeah.
super grateful for all the creators like Darshan, Femka, Charlie, who all you know uh,
Mm,
keep keep their whole process so transparent that it also helps other creators.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. People
so
tend to be very transparent about all those analytics as well, right? How the
yeah,
product is doing after release and all these things.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's helpful because as a as so right now I'm currently running a newsletter, and
Mm,
if I didn't know from these people what would be like the open rates or the click rate for a newsletter,
yeah.
ideally I would be completely probably devastated by the numbers I see, right? But I realize that this is a common thing across the industries when it comes to emails, and it's completely normal, right? So I,
Mm,
I would always think that something like an 80% open rate would be like good open rate, but that's not
right.
true when it comes to the industry in general, especially with newsletters and emails.
Right. Another thing it gives you an accountability of what you're
Hmm.
doing. So even if you are stuck somewhere, you tend to procrastinate usually. I mean, if you are not sharing anything, you're working on something and you're stuck. What do? You procrastinate, right? And if you're sharing that regularly on a platform, that is what I have felt till now. That if you're sharing that, it builds an accountability to do it regularly. That is what I have felt till now. Maybe it's a good aspect of trying this out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I
Hmm.
will definitely try the whole building in public, at least with probably my podcast and newsletter. I
Yeah,
probably can't talk about all the things which happened, like pre-launch and everything, but from here at least there are definitely a lot of things which I can talk about. um
yeah. You should definitely share some things for people starting
yeah,
out in these things. Yeah.
true, true.
You can check out a couple of books by Austin Klein. So in a book
Yeah,
called Show Your Work, he shares all these things, right?
he's my
That how can
favorite
you,
author.
yeah,
I actually like Story work more than Still Like an Artist,
yeah,
because Story work just speaks to me like directly. Still Like an Artist is great. Like I came across
yeah,
the concepts from Still Like an Artist when I used to when I used to watch these videos from Abhinav
mm,
Shikara. But story of work was like completely mind blowing when I read it for the first
Yeah,
time. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, those two books are essentially the two flip sides of a coin only. Steal Like an Artist is basically how you steal ideas from others, and Show Your Work is how you give ideas for others to steal. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty good.
yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, like while preparing for this episode, while researching about you, something which I discovered is you also make games. I'm
Yeah,
Yeah, it was super fascinating. So I definitely probably want to understand more about the video game which you built and how you built it and what was all the
okay,
things which happened in the background.
okay. So, I mean, I am very much interested in video games as in general. I mean, from my childhood only. If you remember, we used to have those Atari consoles, right, which
Yeah.
plugged into TV sets and you could play video games. So I bought my parents bought that in first standard, and I used to play a lot of games on that. And after that, we had all those computer games, right? The initial computer games like GTA Vice City and all these
Mm.
Road Rash, etc. Right? And yeah, so in college as well, I found a lot of people who were interested in games. So we used to play a lot of games like multiplayer games like FIFA and all these. Uh, I mean, games like shooting games or anything. So there is a friend of mine who is also interested in game programming. So we thought in our final year, why not uh, we just build our own game? I mean, we had a lot of time at spare in our final year. There were really detailed classes and all that. So we had a lot of time. So we thought, why not just start making a game? Okay, and we initially thought that we will build a very grand game, like a 3D open world game and all that. But we realized that it's very difficult and time consuming and requires a lot of resources to do that. I mean, I read that GTA 5 itself took around 1,000 people for 7 years to completely develop. So we thought 3D games will probably consume a lot of time and we may not uh, be able to complete that. So we tried another aspect of game design called 2D games. So 2D games have been in the industry for a very long time, even before the pre-internet era, from the 80s, 70s. These games are there. So people who are building those games have perfected the art of the game design process and how you hook your users and all those things. So I thought this is a very interesting part of user experience as well. Not just, I mean, as product designers, we talk about usability, right? That how usable or functional a product is. And games, on the other hand, employ another thing called engageability. That it doesn't only talk about usability, but how well a game engages your users. Okay, and for example, let's say you have started playing a game and you find it very difficult right from the beginning. So you may feel discouraged and you may end up leaving the game, correct? And let's say there is another game which is very easy to play. So you might feel very bored to play this. Why am I playing this? It's no interesting. So you will also leave that game. So you have to find a balance between the right difficulty and the ease of learning, which engages your users. So that's engageability. So this is pretty fascinating, which I found, and it also employs things from the UX point of view. I mean, a lot of apps also employ game-like things, not gamification. Gamification is a different thing. So game-like things like Facebook employs that it shows you a feed and you get hooked to the next thing you see. Or for example, Tinder, what Tinder does, right? It's basically a game-like app. So games have been using all these concepts. So I thought, why not just try out and make a game. So we started making that in our final year. It's a 2D game platformer, and it's basically a story-based, whatever you say, action, whatever game. that you can play, and it's on my website if you want to play. Uh, yeah. So that was the story basically. It got. I was glad that it got built and we finished that and published it publicly. So yeah.
So, curious to know what are the kind of
Hmm.
challenges you faced while designing this game or while learning how to develop a game?
Okay. So one of the challenges was, as I said, complex games took a very can take a very large part of your time and effort. So it's essential to figure out what you can finish. Okay. So if you, let's say, start designing 3D assets, first you'll have to learn about all these 3D tools called maybe Blender or something, and you have to make all these assets. So 2D games was a pretty good way to go about it because I already was using tools like Illustrator and Figma, which I could use or leverage in this part as
Mhm.
well to generate 2D assets like characters or the world or levels or something. Correct. So this was one part. Another part which was challenging was sound design. Correct. And sound is something which games largely employ to do multiple things like engaging you or give you feedback that something has gone wrong or something. So sound design was a very challenging part because we were not sound designers. We can't produce sounds and all those things. So we had to rely on royalty free music,
Mhm.
and royalty free music is free and you can use it, but there is not a very large set, or if you can say that you cannot unify those royalty free assets into a game. So we had to be very picky about what we were picking up, what sounds we were using for each and every interaction. So suppose you are killing an enemy, so sound of the gun and sound of the death animation and everything had to be very unified, and that was pretty difficult to do actually. Yeah, so that was the challenging part, but it was pretty fun actually because after we built our game, we used to invite our friends to our rooms to play and try around and give feedback and all that. So that was a pretty fun part they used. And yeah, I mean, we had a lot of fun doing that. Yep. And
Interesting.
also, apart from this game, I also tried another game myself. I mean, I didn't code the first game, but I wanted
Mhm.
to do that as well. So it was a pretty small game. I took part in a game jam. If you don't know about game jams are basically hackathons for games.
Mhm.
Okay, you have a team, you can participate and build a game in a week or 3 days or something. So I did that and made a game in a week. That it was a basic Flappy Bird clone that it was about a planet that used to fly around and collect points and all that. So yeah,
Mhm.
that was that.
So you talked about
Hmm.
gamification and
Yeah,
engageability,
yeah.
right, in games, and how those two things are completely different. So I want to know if you could probably talk a bit more about it.
Okay. No, they are not completely different. I mean, I'm not saying that they are also very much the same. So they
Mhm.
are little overlapping. Gamification is a process that employs things like rewards mechanisms and all those things. For example, if you have tried that Byju's app, right, it gives you points or rewards on each lecture or something you finish. So that's
Okay.
gamification, that you are motivated by the variable reward you get. Okay. And game engageability is something you are completely immersed into that moment. If you've heard of the term called flow, that
Mm-hmm.
flow is something that you don't feel distracted by anything, you are completely immersed into whatever you're doing. So that what games any game's primary motive is to take the gamer or user to a state of flow, that users don't feel distracted or bored or they feel discouraged. That's engageability. Yeah. So it's
Okay.
not a process, it's basically a concept, you can say, or a theory.
Understood. I mean,
Yeah.
super interesting. Cool. Anyways, man, we have actually reached the end of the episode.
Oh,
I usually end my episodes with,
hmm,
5 rapid fire questions. Just let me
okay.
know whenever you're ready and we can get started.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, man. I'm ready.
Cool. So my first question is books or games?
Oh, games.
Your favorite design resource?
Design resource. Okay. In terms of UX
It can
related or
include books
process
too.
related.
It
Okay,
can
okay.
it can be anything.
I would say medium.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Your favorite game?
My favorite game. Okay, it has to be Little Nightmares, both part one and two. So it's a horror game.
Mhm.
Basically, not a very large game. It's a 3 or 4 hour gameplay and very immersive sound, immersive gameplay. It includes sounds and all those things. It's not a very complex mechanic, but it's a pretty cute little game which I enjoy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Next question. Travel or food?
Oh, uh, food.
I actually tried to connect it with, Cleartrip and Swiggy at first. Then I remembered from your about section in your website where it said like that you enjoy hiking, traveling, and
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm
and
not saying I dislike that comparison. Yeah.
sure, sure. Cool, man. So the last question.
Hmm.
One advice you would give for junior designer.
For junior designers, I would say maybe keep experimenting. Don't, do something which you feel that others are doing. So also have to do it, because what happens is I also used to do that in case studies and all those things. I used to follow a templatized version of case studies that I have to do user research and make flows and all those things. So apart from that, do what you feel is right and keep experimenting other things. Keep trying out. That's how you figure out, I believe.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love the that advice. Anyways, man, we this was the last part of the episode. It was amazing having you on the show. I learned so many things about building Figma plugin, things related to game design. Not so much into games, but it was super curious. I was super curious to know about it, and it was a fun learning process for me as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, the past
Thanks so
few
much, man.
months.
It was a pretty fun conversation.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean the pleasure's all mine to have you as a guest for the show. It was absolutely amazing.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Kaushik.
Thank you so
Cool.
much for joining. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Product Stories for more such episodes.